Hello. So in this video, I actually already recorded a more impromptu transmission while I was in the woods. So there was a bit of wind and I decided not to edit it out. One, because I'm still really new and learning how to edit, and two, it really kind of went along with the energy of the flow of what I was speaking about. So if you can't hear a few parts, I just invite you to take it as white noise and or a little mini transition from the wind. Maybe a clearing or whatever it is that you need in that moment. And so I wanted to just sort of talk about a few things about what came through and kind of weave through some notes that I've been accumulating the last few days through different dreams and experiences that have been showing up. A few other things about the way I bring through and present and express myself can tend to be, as I've been told, and if you listen to any other video or recording that I share, can come through to some people as disorganized. I like to look at it as nonlinear. And yeah, so feel free to utilize this content however you feel called. Whether that's listening to it straight through, not listening at all, divinating it by just picking certain spots. And so with that, I just saw the moon coming through the window, and that's been coming through a lot actually. Today, like moonstone might be relevant for someone like working with moonstone, or the energy of moonstone, looking up the metaphysical properties. Moon gazing. It's currently daytime right now and you can see the moon. And so moon cycles, moon phases, which brings me into, of course, the moon is generally represented by the feminine energy, the subconscious, and Atlantis and Lemuria have been coming through a lot and being represented, at least as an energetic perspective, Atlantean being the more masculine polarity and Lemuria being some more of the like feminine principles of energy. Of course, take that as you will. And so some of the things, information, topics I feel passionate about that come to me, which I mention later in this video, in many different ways, in different forms, like dreams, meditation, research, a form of conscious channeling, astral projection experiences, scrying, many more things, different types of divination. And so I bring this up because I've been sort of trying to reconcile a way to share my perspective, my connection to these things, and working with the idea of masculine and feminine through the Lemurian more feminine principle and polarity, and then the Atlantean more masculine mental approach. And so I suppose you can say my goal in this is to weave through both of those processes in terms of sharing my more metaphysical experiences in that more feminine, flowy way, as well as sometimes presenting more like analytical, mental research, whether I'm citing someone or sharing a clip in the description. I also plan to maybe present some more like, I suppose, like researched material. I don't really plan it too much ahead of time. I just kind of open the channel and open the container, protect the frequencies emitting and transmitting, and then I sort of let it flow from there. Currently I have some more, I guess you can call it researched material, and often I will have different phrases or downloads, if you will, come through, and then right afterwards be guided to, let's say, a YouTube video or a website where a lot of that information has already been brought through from a source that I seem to trust in that moment by utilizing my discernment. And I quite often would feel like, oh, well, I can't share this information if it didn't only come through myself, even though sometimes it does come through my channel. But I often ask this question and have heard pretty much the same response every time, that if that portion has come through to someone who's in, vibrational resonance with myself, of course I always give credit where credit is due, but it's okay to like weave together some of these findings, I suppose, is kind of the way I have been working with that. So yeah. The dream, I suppose, that inspired what I'm about to talk about came maybe within the last week, perhaps a bit sooner. And in the dream, there was a lot going on, but the part I want to talk about now, I was in this semi-crowded area, and I like to call this astral physics. I don't know if that's a thing or if people have said them before, but that's just something that I say. And to explain, like in the dream time or in these astral experiences, the physics is, quite different. And it's like I was talking to myself in some way, like watching myself talk to myself. But I was also talking to a few people surrounding me, and it was like a side note within that where I like flashed to my light body, like, remember this. And I work with the Akashic records, like a lot of us do. And in that flash of remembrance, I said, like, the Akash is infiltrated. So it's time for you to work with the Cloister Dora-teura Plates. Now, I don't like to say things like that. I'm just sharing what I flashed to myself. I wouldn't quite say that is, like, do not work. I'm not, like, trying to fearmonger here. I still work with, the Akashic records really are recording of everything. So I think it was just more of a personal note to myself of, just continuing to filter through discernment. And I have started to teach others to access the Akashic records as well. And so I believe that was just a message to myself of continuing that discernment and to shift focus to include more of the Cloister Dora-teura Plates and the apparatus upon which apparently that was spun off of, which I do have written down the name of it. I can't think of it in this moment, and I will share that if anyone's interested. And so, quick little story. I remember the first time, at least consciously, that I had heard the phrase Cloister Dora-teura Plates. It was, I want to say maybe around 2021. I was listening to someone speak. I believe it was Phil Gruber. I probably will reference him a lot because he's really someone who I look up to, and like I said, when things will come through my own knowing, remembrance, through one of the clairsentience, feeling, hearing, knowing, channeling, however way I receive information, scrying, I do often like to explore that deeper. And so Phil Gruber has been one of those people for me to help really put a fluidity and language to expand deeper of what I was perceiving. And so, yeah, with that, I believe he was the first person I heard that phrase from. And so anyway, I had no idea what it was. And I was listening, I was in a Clubhouse room from someone else who I also learned a lot from, Bridget Renee Holiday. She's awesome. And I'm just so, like, citing these people. I'm not like, they may never hear this. I'm sure they won't. But yeah. And so she was hosting the room, and somehow that phrase came through. And I believe it was Phil Gruber. Anyway, I don't know what it was about hearing that phrase, but like my whole body and my whole being was just like, "Ooh, you need to know what that is." And I was trying to Google it at the time, and I couldn't find anything. And I was still really like shy about speaking up in a crowd, which I'm honestly still working through, but it's cool to see how much improvement I've made since then. And I remember at the end, Bridget asked if anyone had any questions or wanted to share anything. And myself and one other person at like the same time were like, "What are the Dora-teura plates, the Cloister Dora-teura plates? Can you please like," and she was like, yeah, you can kind of go into the speaker's work and find that. And so, I did at some point, and it's been slowly revealing itself in different ways. I have not even identified what they are yet. So if you are familiar, then great. Please feel free to share what you feel and know about them in the comments. And I will get into that in a moment at some point. I actually plan to continue talking more about this and revealing what it means from my perspective and the research I've done. If you really want to go deeper until I can present more content, Ashayana Dean, or just if you want another perspective, Ashayana Dean, Deane, last name. People are starting to like post her work, and she talks a lot about, I believe she was one of the first people to present it. And she had written 2 books, Voyagers 1 and 2, I believe it's called, where she mentions. So yeah, there's some resources for you if this is something that also excites you. If you're already familiar, like I said, then I guess you are just as interested as I am. And so with all that, there were a few other spin-offs from that phrase that came through. And now there's something that I call the Akashic or Akash womb portal. There's also, in certain traditions, the holy womb chakra, which to me kind of feel pretty similar. And the way that the Akashic womb portal presented itself to me, it is something that I see with me all the time. It started to come through, I believe, around 2020. I'm sure it was always there and I just did not perceive it, but I started to physically see it with me. I don't talk about this a lot, so please be patient with me while I work out how I want to let this come through. And so you can say it sort of floats next to me, and it is very clear, but it has substance, so I can see it. And when I first noticed it, I remember I was walking around in my neighborhood when I had bought my own condo a couple years ago. I don't live there any longer, but I love to walk, and I walk very often. And I just remember I started seeing this, and I was like, what is that? Like, I had no idea what it was. And each time I was outside, I noticed I would see it a little bit more, like over time, it would show more of itself to me. And I want to say it was maybe like, when I first saw it, 1 inch or 2 long, very small, like almost to the point where I could have easily dismissed it and been like, there's nothing there. Again, as I kept practicing channeling and researching, expanding my awareness, it started to grow. And then one day I was like, can I talk to you? Like, do you have a consciousness? I mean, of course, everything really has a consciousness, and I remember I had earphones. I actually don't really wear earphones much anymore. But I had earphones at the time and I wore them all the time. And when I asked that question, like, they were fine and they had never done this before, but they like started to just go staticky, like really intensely, and then stopped. And it was like quite literally in unison of me asking that question. And I was like, oh snap. And then as it continued, I would interact with it, in different ways. And at this time, mind you, I still didn't know like what it was. And so I just kept asking, like, what are you? What is going on? Why are you growing? Why are you with me? Does everyone have one of these? Like, I just kept asking questions. And I would get like responses here and there of different things, but I asked for some sort of like validation. And I remember when I was in Hawaii in, I feel like 2021, I was laying on the beach. It was like the first or second day I was there. And it just like showed itself to me even more. I remember like in that moment, it like grew itself and I could see more of it. And I was looking at the sky and it was sunny. And I was seeing all these beautiful like light codes. And as it expanded, I was like, it looks like a fetus. Like, it looked like a fetus. And I was like, is this like an unborn baby? Like, what is this? What kind of fetus? But that didn't quite feel right. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try and be patient and just keep asking. Anyway, fast forward a bit. I read this book that I really, really loved. I feel like I quantum leaped reading this book in terms of my cellular DNA memories expanding and like grounding into my vernacular and my mind and my physical body, everything. It's called Nothing in This Book is True. There's more to it, and it's written by Bob Frissell. Excuse me, and he's sort of, yes, by the way, I do burp quite often, and I'm often clearing energy when I burp, so I'm not going to edit them out, and if it tends to offend a lot of people, I used to get upset about it, but yeah, it's just kind of what it is. So, Bob Frissell, he sort of, I felt like a kinship with him because I feel like he's very big into breath work. He practices breath work and he does a lot of research. He also brings through his own perspective and kind of ties things together. And that's something that I really love to do. So yeah, if you read it, then please comment below and tell me what you thought, because yeah, I really personally liked it. If you haven't, feel free to explore it. It took me a little bit, this was, a couple years ago, but when I started reading it, it took me a little while to, like, I really took my time. I listened to it quickly, but I tried to, like, really feel into some of the material. Anyway, all that to say, I remember I was walking down the street, listening to the audiobook, and he mentioned something, an Akashic womb portal that's connected to Sirius B. There's a bird flying by the window as I'm saying this. And he started to describe what this womb portal was. And what's crazy? Every time I try to go back and find it, I couldn't find it. Like, I can never find that spot again. At least, like, not after a certain point. Anyway, I suppose it was more about, like, developing my own relationship with this. And I'm sharing it now because, like I said, there's like a few people in my life that I've shared it with, but not too many. And so talking about it right now is pretty weird, but exciting. And I'm curious to see if anyone else has had experiences like this. So there's this idea of essentially like an instant link to, like, via this Akash womb portal. And Bob Frissell talks about some of the history behind it. And it related to, I just forgot the name of the beings, of course. But they are like bipedal, humanoid, like half dolphin beings, essentially, humanoid dolphin beings that, supposedly came here from Sirius B to share information. Now, take that as you will. They say the Dogon tribe in West Africa, I believe, are one of the tribes that they shared these communications with. And I remember one of the parts of the explaining of this was that the beings like needed to be in water, so they landed and then filled a chunk of land or something. They like basically made their own pool somehow and then like presented in the water and then telepathically communicated. So I just saw an orb flash in when I said that. So yeah, there, this is just some points of remembrance, and I've heard that depiction multiple times. So the idea of this Akashic Womb portal having like essentially a direct link to Sirius B. I mean, of course, the quantum entanglement, once we step into that more quantum communication, I suppose it will manifest differently for different people. I don't have an answer if everyone is connected to this or I'm still learning as I go. So again, if anyone is familiar, like, please feel free to share. And my experience with it has been very unraveling. Like, I feel like I'm still receiving new things. So now when I see it with me, it has grown so much. And when I heard that phrase, Akashic Womb portal, it showed itself to me, and I had like full body chills, and I just had this like instant knowing that is what it was. And so as I was walking through all of these different studies and deep diving through hypnosis, I received beyond quantum healing sessions, and I've also I give them as well. So through my own receiving, through giving them, through channeling, through all these different mediums, I have, and dreams too. So I would say in the last 6 months, it really started interacting with me through dream time. Like, it will show itself in dream time, and it will show like souls coming in and out of it. In dreams, I'll be like assisting souls back through like a light, communicating through this womb portal. And it also feels like, the more holy womb chakra work, like I do a lot of cleansing and clearing of the ancestral karmic lineages. And so I feel like I'm just kind of putting this together now, that the more I do that, the more it will kind of show itself and reveal more. I realize now, in speaking of this, I heard the word filtration. Yeah, it's almost as if there's like a filtration process that, the more karmic miasma is cleared out, the more clearly, of course, I mean, that seems pretty obvious, but I paused because I could literally feel my ears like expanding out in frequency, and that happened in the first transmission I did. If you listen to that, it will be linked after this, or not linked, it might actually just flow right into it. And so, speaking of the Sirius B connection and the Akashic Womb portal and the journey back to the Dora-teura Plates, so the Dora-teura Plates are allegedly these 12 silver discs from Atlantean times, with subjects ranging from spirituality, ascension, 15th dimensional physics, and all in between, above, below. And as I said, I do want to present more of like the technical information, but for now I just kind of wanted to flow and see what wanted to come through, and share some of like the process and experiences, so that people, if anyone hears this, they can kind of maybe either reflect on their own experiences, or maybe you're already sharing these experiences and this can just be another perspective. However it fits in for you, essentially. And I remember the day that I wanted to record this, I looked up into the sky. Sometimes I sky, and the clouds will just start, shifting into different things. And I saw a whale, and I always connect in, like the record keepers as the whale beings. And I know that a lot of people also feel this way. And so that kind of was like my, I don't know if you want to say sign or just like the go ahead to start talking about this, because I've been really hesitant to talk about these things for so long. And yeah, so again, thanks for your patience if you're still listening, because I'm working through some of this, and I just happened to open my journal where I was writing things down, and of course I just beelined my eyes to, I have like all these things written down, and all I see is old fears resurfacing, the collective shadow. And then underneath of that I wrote, silence, void, darkness, pitch frequencies, dreams. And so I do know, no matter when you see this, there's these resurgence, especially for me the last like few weeks, especially last like maybe 2 weeks, where these older fears that I really felt like I cleared are kind of coming back around, as they say. My old mentor Jana, who was amazing and helped me so much, used to say healing is nonlinear, and I've heard that being said once I started to listen to other people speak about these topics, and it's just so true. And so I will say this might be my 7th YouTube video. I just started posting maybe 2 weeks ago, and I noticed like this is one of my really big fears. I'm still working through it, and the idea that these fears were resurfacing in terms of just noticing certain like old self-talk things that I thought I kind of released. And then when I looked into the idea of the collective shadow and that like, Plutonian influence, there's just so many shifts going on and so much coming to the surface. And it, if that's something you're experiencing, my invitation is just to, like, I like to continue to just kind of acknowledge it, just kind of sit with anything that comes up, and, however you process, whether it's through journaling, through recording yourself speaking, drawing, painting, there are infinite ways to do this. Yeah, I'm hearing, try to, especially if you're someone who's already like gone through the depths and, it's just kind of like a resurfacing from time to time. Just know that like the more we clear, the more I believe that we are deeply connected to the feeling of the collective. And so it can just be sometimes a signal to, sit with yourself and clear out whatever you need to clear out. And just, I like to send and do some grid work and just send some energy healing into the collective for the highest good of all. I just like felt very lightheaded when I said that. So just know if you're also experiencing that. Of course, I'm not a physician, but I would just bring through messages as they come through and weave it through the topics of the moment. And so I feel that like still. So yeah, just staying hydrated, and not pushing yourself too much, really like this video is focusing more on the feminine. So, all of the yin, yin principles of receiving, slowing down. Again, talking about the womb, right? I just realized the connection. Sitting in the darkness, maybe sitting in silence more. And I heard another reader talk about this, and I thought he put it so well. I was doing a stellar gateway activation. It is listed on my YouTube videos. It has like a big selenite portal image that I created with Canva and the AI Magic Creator. So if that's something you feel called to. And the Stellar Gateway Chakra linked through the galactic consciousness, galactic gateway. And so, yeah, it was a lot of the way he put it. I believe his name is Luca, and he put like the idea of, even as much as you feel like you've done so much, whatever it is, like shadow work and or activations, it's like still, that weaving of the darkness and the void and the feminine, and just allowing yourself to be still and receive in moments where you feel like, especially that that idea of maybe feeling a little lightheaded or queasy. But even if not, just to integrate some of these frequencies that are being emitted for those who are ready to receive them. And so tying in the idea of the womb and the feminine and the darkness and receiving and all of the things I've been talking about, I wanted to also now kind of incorporate another phrase that came through a dream a few days after the Cloister Dora-teura Plates. And anything, again, that you would like to go deeper, Lisa Renee, I don't even know if I know that she doesn't really speak much on like too many platforms, but I think it's wonderful. The Ascension Glossary, you can type in Ascension Glossary, and there are just so many phrases I just kept channeling through. And when I found her glossary, it was just so great for me, because I was like, oh my God, there's someone else receiving this, and she did such a great job of, I believe, really tying things together and giving some definition. I mean, they're definitions. That word just doesn't feel like it fits, but definitions, for lack of a better word. And anyway, so a lot of these phrases or words, if you're not really familiar, again, I do plan to go into some of the more technical stuff, but for now I'm just kind of letting it free flow, like I said. And what came through a few days later in dream time was quantum seed, the phrase quantum seed. And then there was this other portion of the dream where there was a future time loop. So it was like quantum seeding, and then these like future time loops were appearing. And I was so intrigued by those phrases. I wrote them down and I was like, what's going to come from this? And I actually wasn't guided to research that. I will leave it open to interpretation. And if anything wants to come through right now, I will let that. So I'm just going to kind of take a breath and close my eyes and just feel into it. And I invite you to do the same if you feel called. Yeah, maybe take a nice deep breath in through the nose. Just hold it. And just kind of like exhale it out audibly. Okay, so I was drawn back to the phrase I wrote down, pitch frequencies. Now, the word quantum has been used a lot lately. And I know one of the alleged definitions is when I say alleged, I just mean, I suppose the more like scientific explanation, the smallest, I believe it's like the smallest point. And so quantum seeding, I'm being taken to the field. So like these, kind of like when we talk about planting seeds of intention and, using that metaphorically, this quantum seeding of those of us who are tuning in, tapping in, and collectively working together to co-create these new blueprints, grids, organic grid structures, paradigms. This seeding, is perpetuating these future time loops. And what's showing me now is like these time loops are of course, like these infinite potentials, and the seeding is like bringing and birthing in these potentials, which is kind of the way I'm seeing it. So yeah, like I said, I do plan to talk more in depth on these things, but that's all that's coming through at the moment. So if anything else comes through, I will absolutely share it. And my nose just started to really itch on the left side. To me, it's usually like a flux in energy. It depends on the context of what I'm doing, but that's what I'm getting at this point. Okay, now I just wanted to see if there was anything else that I wanted to weave in, because I had written down, if you hear my pages turning, my apologies. And so, okay, I did write down the original angelic blueprints. So that is something I feel my jumping off point, like everything that if I can relate everything that I speak of back to, that is like the underlying intention to continue understanding DNA and the activations and the crystalline DNA to restore the original angelic blueprints, both in the human, the grid structures, and everything in between. And so I just wanted to touch on that because I'm definitely plan on speaking of that quite often. And I believe in the portion where I'm in the woods that will come after this. It just might give a little bit of background. Now, when I say the word channeling, I suppose at this point, consider myself a conscious channel. Like I said, I receive through many different mediums. And I know a lot of people who consider themselves channels don't like to insert their humanness or their human responses. Like I said, this has come with years now of refining and practice and research and confirmations and synchronicities, and I'm just showing up the way that I feel is best right now. That may change in the future, but I sort of talk through the experiences and what's coming through. And so I just wanted to add that as well. And timelines also come up in the woods portion, and the idea of, co-creating these new timelines of the crystalline soul aurora time matrix. So currently, as I was talking about before, the 15th dimensional physics and time structure of our universe. And so the quantum seeding and the idea of really like transcending that matrix and stepping into like the soul avatar matrix of co-creation and a more expanded consciousness and direct link to whatever you want to deem the word as source, omnipresence, the morphogenetic field. And so I think that's kind of where I want to leave this portion. And if you're listening to this, because I'm still learning how to edit, I believe it will just kind of transition instantly into the next portion of this, where like I said, I was inspired to start recording, and I wasn't sure if I was going to post it. So it's a little bit rough, and at points I'm like giving myself notes. Like I say, oh yeah, I recorded that already. I recorded it, meaning like I record my dreams almost every day. So it's just like a note to myself. So please be patient with me as I continue to learn how to edit. And I don't plan on editing too much of my stuff because I kind of just like it to I trust when I open the container what comes through. But yeah, just even like transitioning multiple video clips and stuff. So again, thanks for your patience, and that is all for this portion. I'm in a little wooded area, and I just did a little thing, and I heard I am raw. I'm going to hear that usually, so there was something that popped up. This person who I don't follow or anything showed up, and I saw an interview with him, but I've never heard him like directly channel on like TikTok or anything, at least that I remember. And he was channeling Ra, and then I just walked into the woods. This is like yesterday, the day before, and I just kind of like tuned in, and I heard I am Ra, and then I heard I am Ra, as time is not linear, tuning in from the last time you consciously heard my voice in a dream. And I'm hearing dream, like I heard like a dream, like, is it a dream? Now I'm hearing in the space in between, as time is not linear, picking up where we left off, as you heard the sound of my voice and the sound coming from the primordial space of the Om, where the sound of the universal sound begins. And then I started to record. That's what I heard, more or less. And then I started to question it, because that's what I do. And then my jaw started to hurt. The right side of my jaw hurt when I said that. Continuation of, I just like, I don't know. They have to pick someone else. Oh, look, a wishy. I love those. I am Ra. Okay, now my ears are switching frequencies, and I'm hearing beeps. Not beeps like psychically, beeps externally, but my ears are shifting. I heard one moment, please. Now I'm feeling like a radio, like those old school radios where they like over. Now it's popping me over to an experience I had with it was like a Pleiadian feminine and masculine energy, and then like in physical vessels in spacesuits. I remember they were like gray and black, I feel like. And my left palm is tingling. And then I was shooting over to Sirius, and then they were like, over, not yet, come back another time. I'm hearing a bird. And you know what? I feel like I was going to work or something. My ears are shifting again. And now I'm feeling the Sirian energy coming through. I'm hearing Sirius B. So I'm hearing holographic 3D hologram expansion. This vessel coming in this current space-time, projecting a 3D holographic imprint, multidimensionally expanding in this real-time moment through the Pleiades and the Sirius B. So they're showing me the womb portal, like entering into through the apparatus of the Dora-teura Plates. That's been coming up a lot lately. My ears are actually still readjusting. Like they are not like completely here right now. Like I can't explain it. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm hearing kind of like when you're on a boat and or a boat. I meant to say a plane. It's funny because I had a plane boat in my dream last night. Interesting. It was like, it looked like it was flying, and it looked like a craft. I already recorded this. And then it looked like a boat from a different angle, but it was in the air. So if I could describe my ears, it's the best I can do. I'm hearing micro shifting, and they're taking me back to this. They keep saying 3D. I'm hearing 3D hologram. A 3D hologram. Okay, now I'm being shown an oracle card from the Lemurian deck I used to have, and it's showing me the 5D card of the 5D blueprint. I'm hearing the co-creation. something I wrote down the other day. Spirit, thy matter, spirit. Now I'm being taken to the etherization process. I'm hearing the gentleness being displayed and displaying. I'm hearing the word reinsertion of the, so the 3D hologram or holographic, I'm hearing the word image, reflecting back. So I looked up a brief description of laser technology per Phil Gruber's advice, and it was kind of showing how, like, it's not so simple. There's, like, things that need to be placed in certain ways to reflect the light, and then there's moving parts. Like, there's so much that's going on, and I am not, like, explaining this in depth or well, but it's for the sake of this reascension they're saying process right now. I saw another dandelion bush. I heard it's been a rough one, and of course that's a a more earthly human perspective, because I'm sure once you get into expanded states, I don't know if the word rough quite translates, but given that we're on a human plane, so they're basically showing me right now different people, who channel. Everyone has their own way of perceiving, and the way that it's coming through is to not dismiss the humanness. That's been coming through a lot lately, like utilizing the human aspect, as they're showing me my left promising link, like the growth that happens when you apply. Now they're showing me 15th dimensional ascension physics. I didn't mean to say ascension, but okay. 15th dimensional, like our time matrix, and the, like, inner workings of the, like, I'm hearing the word neural pathways. So yeah, essentially the way we perceive it, and to, now the wind is picking up, and to, like, integrate that, the human process is, like, adding to another layer, another element, of course, of the laser technology, of the 3D holographic imprint, which then, of course, continues to expand. So Earth at this current time is highlighted, like in anthroposophy, when they speak of the different, like, epochs representing an integration of different aspects. So, like, for example, in the Atlantean epoch, and I've recorded this before, where they talk about the mental plane and how the mental plane and the individual I was focused upon. And at this current epoch, the idea of, like, love and emotions, and really, like, that development of the emotional body also as an I, but simultaneously coming back to the hive mind, the collective consciousness. Hear that bird? It's beautiful. I just heard the word mellow. I don't know why. And so mellow music. So mellow music could be an assistance to this process currently. So yeah, like, it's not about dismissing the humanness. I'm hearing even the doubt. So, like, I hear so many people, this is why I doubt my own channel, because I feel like I it's like utilizing that doubt as fuel. So it's just this, like, radical acceptance and celebratory, like, weaving of all of the available emotions on the earth plane. And as I say this, the wind is just, like, so, it just feels so interconnected. And, I got a little, actually, my short was a little fuse. My fuse was a little bit short today. I noticed just little things, and I was like, okay, what's happening? I really need to go take a walk in the woods and just, like, release whatever this is. So this is more of, I suppose, an invitation of I'm hearing this message necessarily won't apply to everyone because it is not... I'm hearing correction. It's not that it won't apply to everyone. It will apply to everyone differently because everyone is in a different branch of this container that is being offered. So like for me, these short fuses, it didn't feel like myself. I was like, where is this coming from? I just had deja vu. And so I came to the woods, as I said, and started this recording. I did not plan to channel. I just felt it come through. So they're showing me it was like a fuel gauge, like the circumstances around me. You know, I have been feeling like Alice in Wonderland literally like most of my life, and I'm back in my hometown right now. And you know, for this, they're saying this human vessel, that like those irritants are... It's funny because I've been pulling cards about irritants, and it keeps saying like, oh, if you have irritants, like, you know, you basically need to evolve and need to do this. And like, yes, but also it's like not to judge it or to like, oh, you're low vibrational if you have irritants. They're saying it's not about that per se. They just keep showing me it's like a fuel ejection, where it's like, oh, my left palm is tingling, where it's like utilize these irritants. And of course, those people who aren't willing to look deeper into that, then yeah, they may just be running around short fusing all the time and not making any differences. Like someone that I am around a lot is, in my view, I just heard the bird, kind of an example of that. And they're saying there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just the experience of the free will on this earth plane. But for those, this message is more for those who want to turn and alchemize those, for example, irritants. It's just the word that's coming up currently. It could apply in other emotions as well. And to use that to like ignite whatever it is. So when I was sitting in the car earlier, I was waiting for my friend, and I kept feeling like the those little, it wasn't even like bursts of anger where I was like screaming. I would just find myself getting like a little like antsy or impatient. And then I would just kind of take a deep breath and it would subside. And then a little other thing would happen. And I was literally like saying a prayer, if you will. That's not like my favorite word, but setting, just, you know, the sun was out and I was kind of like closing my eyes and tuning into my heart and just speaking that way. And it was like, you know, for those who are ready to please make it available, you know, in the collective, in the grids, for people to turn and alchemize, you know, the fine line between anger and passion. It's like how much beauty has been created from anger, you know, like that scorpionic going into the depths. So it's not to say, like, I quite literally heard not to shit on these deemed lower vibrational, and I'm using air quotes, because I think something that is coming through from my human self right now is like the understanding of some of the shame in some of the circles of New Age communities. And I am not saying that they're incorrect. I'm just saying, like, you know, I've doubted my own evolution because every once in a while I do still have what people deem, quote, as a negative experience or a negative vibration. And I truly don't think that just because we expand, multidimensionally is quite literally just multiple perspectives. So when you expand your multidimensionality, you are expanding your perspective from a scientific perspective. You know, like in physics, there's like all the different sacred geometrical shapes. So we are just adding in our light body and adding in our subtle bodies, and we are expanding. It doesn't, to me anyway, you know, I am very open to like take this one day and shift it. But it feels like to me there's an expansion. Like now when I go to the bathroom and I'm looking at a light, I look at lights a lot. I remember I would, you know, at one point in my life, it was just a light. I didn't really think anything of it. Then I started to see colors around the light. And then I started to see orbs that shift from the color of the light. And then I see streams of light that like stream out of my hair, and I see these, they look like clear, like when you see like bubbles that are clear but you can still see them. I don't know, like ovum, like they're like these, like when you look at cells under a microscope, And at first it started, I just saw a couple, and now I see they're just streaming through. Like, there's just this continued expansion. And then it can translate also to when I look at the sky, for example. Some people look and they see a blue sky, and that's the end of it, and that's okay. But when I look at the sky, again, I see these, then there's the different color spectrums of seeing rainbow and the primary colors. Then I started to see these iridescent, like heliotalic colors, where to me it's like the high self of the rainbow. It's the ethereal aspect. When I look at a bird now, I don't just see a bird. I like feel it, and I see aura around it, and I like feel like there's messages that come through, and they're communicating, and we're interacting. It's this continued expansion, and it's a process of retraction and then in, out, up, down, circle, square. Like, it's not just like, okay, I've ascended and now I'm expanded and I walk around and everything is just rainbows and beautiful and butterfly and peaches. I mean, are there moments like of bliss? At 100%. Can that be more of a natural state? I'm not saying it isn't, but I think this whole idea of ascension having to be this blissed out all the time thing, and I could be speaking from a shadow aspect, and I'm very aware of that. But I have to also, I keep getting this message over and over and over and over and over and over to speak my truth and my experience and what, not just mine as Jess, but my experiences of researching, of channeling, of dream work, of astral projection, of all these different scrying techniques and all of these different spaces and places that I have traversed, contracted, expanded, went into hiding, came out into public, into the ethers, into the earth, into the, multidimensionality of different realms and beings and life experiences. And so to me, at this current moment, I'm hearing I am Ra again. So the law of one material, and they're showing me now Ashayana Dean, and the I'm hearing bridge between all of these different teachings. I'm kind of hearing a chuckle again, and they're showing me religion, right? And how if you look in religion, which I love theosophy for this reason, there's like there's grains of truth woven throughout these religions and through these texts and through these books. And Ashayana Dean's, her one talk that I heard her speaking of was, these books were written, and sure, we can utilize the books, but it's in our cellular structure, it's in our DNA, it's in our memories, it's in the morphogenetic field, it's quite literally in our trees, it's part of the interconnectedness as a collective consciousness, the individual, and the relationship dynamics between that. And so all this to say, the 15-dimensional time matrix that apparently our current solar system operates in, even that is multidimensional, and of course we could continue to expand outside of that. But like Gigi Young's now coming to mind. One of her teachings that she speaks of, and she basically recapitulates a lot of Rudolf Steiner's work and theosophical and some Eastern traditions, and she'll often say, like, well, we can keep, blowing ourselves into cosmic consciousness, but if we don't bring it back to our own, Earth and solar system, like in anthroposophy, it's like the solar system is a school. So if we don't kind of, like I was saying earlier, retract, it's like convex and concave. It's like they all kind of play on each other. So if you just keep expanding, I mean, hey, maybe someone on this earth plane is meant to do that. And if that's what they're meant to do, then hey, who am I to tell them not to, And that's another thing. Like, that's why I think it's so important at this time to truly listen to our own inner voices. And everyone says that right now, it's time to just go within, to go within, to go within. And yes, agreed. I've done a lot of that. But I don't regret my research sometimes it has tripped me up. Yes, sometimes I compare myself too much, and I'm working through that. So that's why I think it's so important, because I also sometimes think of like that phrase of being on your high horse or your high tower. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but when you're just always in your own energy and never connecting to anyone else's ideas or thoughts, I think there's a time and a place for like intersecting points. Like if we go to timeline work, timelines will merge and, be in process of different reconnections. And sometimes it's like a person. They may be in your life. What's that expression? A season, a lifetime, a moment, etc. Hear that bird? And so it's like we have these intersecting points. And I think for each person to be able to tune into that and, navigate through their own knowing is kind of like what's important right now. Like that's why I think that phrase, the inner guru, is so important right now, because, the days of just giving your power away to an external source is kind of what has created the reality we have now, like that disconnection of, complete external reality, materialism, and Ahrimanism, which is another anthroposophical lens on some of these things. And my throat just got like a bubble in it, and it feels like, I just saw a cow. Oh, now I'm hearing Hathor. The Hathors. So sound and the importance of sound. And when I first opened this container, the I am Ra frequency that I was feeling, of course, connected to the sun, and now I'm being taken to Egypt. So when I was walking the other day, I heard I was seeing all these numbers, and like these birds were going crazy. Like I was walking, and like they were like nose diving into each other. Like, and I was in a downtown city, so all the buildings were like really close together, and these birds were just like multiple blocks that I walked. There was just like these birds acting real cray, and I was like, what's going on? And then I saw 777, I think 666. I wrote it down, maybe 222, something, all in a row. And then I walked by someone, and I just happened to overhear them talking about Egypt. So I think these like golden Egyptian timelines are coming up, and I've heard other readers refer to it as that. So it could just be that is where it's coming from, but I'm hearing the overlap in these memories resurfacing, because so many people are tapping back into that. It's bringing forth from the collective consciousness this remembrance of the mundane. And I heard a different Elsa, her name is Elsa, I can't remember her last name right now. I believe she lives in Australia or New Zealand. I can't remember at the moment. I believe it's Australia. And she talks about like the mystical and the mundane, and how like creating that beauty from the mundane and not seeking out the mystical, but allowing it to kind of like weave in to your everyday life in those divine timing moments, like not chasing it, but embracing the mundane and creating beauty with that. And I'm kind of being shown that right now with these, I'm hearing like weaving timelines of, when I say timeline, there's different perspectives that I've heard. And I'm being taken to a dream I had last night where there was this little girl in the dream. She was about 5 years old, and I feel like I need to go see what this bird is doing. Oh, there it is. I can barely see it though. And essentially, in the dream, she was with her mother, who is a reader on YouTube that I really respect and talks a lot about timelines, actually. And in the dream, the reader, was super stressed, and she like had her daughter, and she was trying to record. And I went up to her and I was like, "Hey, like, I just wanted to say, like, I'm so appreciative of you. Like, you have really helped me, and like, I just really think that you are like a great YouTube reader, and really authentic, blah blah blah." And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. But yeah, I'm just like really busy. And I was like, I know this is kind of crazy, but like, I don't know you, but if you want, like, I have some time, I can watch your daughter. And she was like, okay, great. And she just like handed it over to me. And she looked really small, the little girl. And I was saying when I recorded my dream earlier that she had these like green eyes, the little girl, but they almost look like made out of like claymation or like a mixed animation claymation type thing. Like the rest of her seemed human, and then like her eyes just seemed quite different. And like I said, she was really small, and then for some reason when the woman handed her to me, she like looked and felt so much bigger, kind of like Alice in Wonderland when she's like small and then gets big. And I like took her to these different rooms, and I was like, oh, like, what would you like to do? And I was taking her to like kids stuff, and she looked really bored, and I was like, you know, what's up? Like, you don't seem very happy right now. Like, what would you like to do? You don't seem to be interested in these things. And she like thanked me and was like, yeah, thank you for asking. Like, I'm not interested in this. And then she started to draw an earth and talk about the new earth. She's like, we're here for the new earth. And I was like, oh, okay, are we? Look at you. And then she started to talk about how it makes her sad because the people who aren't like coming with. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's like you mean it's like going to be separate? And she was like, no, it just makes me sad that they basically like they'll still be here, but they won't see it or feel it. And so when I think of timelines, when we talked about these, what it is to ascend or expand, you know, I don't quite think that we're leaving or going anywhere, although it is said that some beings have, you know, ascended so much they don't come back, and that's conscious dying, which is a whole other topic that I would love to talk about one day. And so this whole idea of now I'm being shown like how when they say, you know, if you're not seen anymore, I don't know that there's one path, just like, you know, that expression, all roads lead home. Like, I think there are so many paths back to whatever you want to call it, source. And I think that's what's so cool about the earth plane. Like, yes, I think ascension mechanics and ascension science and spirit science, to me, that is all extremely important. But I always have felt this since I started getting into this. There's this element of all roads lead home. Like, maybe what, you know, 1,000 beings experience, like, for example, the Mayans, they say, like, vibrated themselves out of this plane, right? So maybe that was their experience, and maybe someone else's experience isn't to like necessarily vibrate themselves out of this plane, but to live amongst this experience with that, you know, DNA emerald sun activation of like piecing back together the origins and honoring the human angelic lineage of traversing this earth with, you know, the full human capability. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like I could keep going and going, but I just felt like a wave of something coming through my head, like almost like an emptiness. Oh, one more message. Decluttering. The word declutter has been coming up the last few days so strongly. And then I made a little oracle deck for my friend, and I wrote declutter and reorganize, and downsize. And I kept pulling this card for myself, and I was so shocked because like I don't have many physical items. I'm staying with a friend right now, and all I have to my name is like not even one full suitcase size of items. And I was like, what am I downsizing? What am I decluttering? And then I was like, oh. And I've been processing my emotions, and, you know, I was journaling and reflecting, and, you know, my physical body needed a declutter. I've been moving more. Like, I was like, what is it? And then I finally was like, click, light bulb moment. All of my thoughts and my ideas and, you know, my insights I received through channeling and through dreams and through research and just my essence expression of what I'm passionate about, essentially. And so I've also been trying to create change, and I have been making these micro shifts and changes, and I keep trying to come back to this, what is it that I need to do? And then it just kept showing me declutter and creativity, and I was like, oh, I need to ground my ideas. So again, there's sometimes that need for expansion and, traversing the ethers and regaining our wisdom. Sometimes these things are simultaneous. And right now, even though I'm still doing that, I mean, for me, that's just kind of what I do most of the time. But now it's a time also to be present in this moment. And I kept getting the card ground down, Earth Star Chakra, ground down. So yeah, like quite literally birthing these ideas. So that could be also relevant in terms of needing to release. For some people it might be emotions. For some people, like I said, could be physical items. For some people it's ideas. And it's funny because I had my phone with all these ideas on it. I would just get ideas and just write it down. And I was writing down so many ideas, and I realized I wasn't really I was taking like baby steps here and there, but I was more just like idea phasing. And then when I lost my phone, it wasn't backed up. So all those ideas were pretty much gone, but I did have one or two saved in my computer. And I was like, you know what? Just pick one and do it, And then people kept telling me that. Anyway, and of course I was working through some things about like utilizing my voice and speaking my own perspective. And I'm not saying it is the truth, but speaking what feels like truth to me, at least in this moment. I remember one time someone asked me, what is my ultimate truth? And apparently she like learned from religion. So I wasn't like raised religious, or I didn't really partake in many religious things. And in her religion, they talked about the ultimate truth. And she was like, so what's your ultimate truth? And I was like, oh, I haven't really I've never been asked that before. But I was like, I went on instinct. This was maybe like 5 years ago. And I said, change. To me, change is the ultimate truth. Whatever is happening changes constantly. It's the constant. The only constant to me is change. And she was like, no, that can't be your ultimate truth. And I was like, says who? And she went on and on about how that's just not possible. And then I remember over the years I had that conversation with a few other people, and there were a few people that actually felt the same way I did. So my truth may not be someone else's truth, and I have to be okay with that and not worry that I'm I always think I'm offending someone or saying something that is incorrect. So anytime I'm speaking, I really hope that the encoded frequency and intention behind what I say is, to take what feels good to you. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I never want anyone to feel like I'm forcing something, although I can't control that, of course. But that's been really stifling my expression. And so I just wanted to share that just in case maybe someone else feels that way, or maybe the next time, because I listen to certain people sometimes, and they will express things with such absolute certainty, this is the way it is, and I have such a hard time with that. Maybe it's not that way for me, maybe it's not the way for someone else, and I get very exactly, just so yeah, I just wanted to share that as well. I'm looking at a piece of what looks like, I can't see what it is, but there's light reflecting off of it. It's a broken piece of something. And I'm being reminded again of that holographic imprint and insertion I'm hearing. So a lot of us are getting that expanded, laser technology holographic expansion. And so that's why this need for patience and honor and taking breaks when we need to is so important, because it is quite a process. And that reminded me for some reason, because they say when you look at a holographic image, the whole, no matter how many times you break it down, the whole is still captured in the piece of it. And so I'm hearing take that and apply it to oh, interesting. They're showing me shamanic journeying and fractalized, when we talk about soul fragments or fractalized aspects of us and multidimensionality. It's even though you will have that fractalization, or a lot of people say the distortion, because you take a piece of it, that holographic whole is still in there. It's up to our perspective if we can perceive it. Now, it may not be the same manifestation, of course, because of different laws of physics, and of course, as we evolve, though, the physics also shift. So yeah, these are just some food for thought and things that are coming to mind that I wanted to share. Please feel free to, I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I'll see. So please feel free to share your own thoughts, experiences, anything else that you would like. And if you got this far, thank you for listening.